The truth behind the collapse of Blockbuster Video. The number of bankruptcy filings are increasing by the day, and nowadays, one comes across a slew of enterprises that were previously well known but are now bankrupt, or worse, have shut down. It's almost disheartening to see these once recognized organizations declare bankruptcy, but we need to understand what caused their demise so others might take heed and avoid such fatal mistakes. This one, in particular, used to be a quite well-known movie rental franchise known as Blockbuster Video. But before we get into the details, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss any new updates from the channel. Done? Well then, let's get right into it. Do you still remember Blockbuster? Not the Blockbuster, which is synonymous with a punchline, but the Blockbuster Entertainment, which was once the most well-known video rental store. This might be too old for some of you guys, but I still remember vividly how it felt like to walk through the aisles of a Blockbuster store and looking at the new release section. It wasn't all sunshine and glitters, but I'm sure that most people have positive memories associated with the movies they rented and the store itself in general. During those days, when streaming services such as Netflix and Prime Video were still talk of the future, such stores were the most optimal ways to get movies. The other option were either too expensive or too uncertain. You could buy them at a ridiculous price at the store or pay for the movie channels on cable in hopes that something you like comes on there. Although there were many competing stores such as Family Video and Hollywood Video, they just didn't compare to Blockbuster. For me, personally, I just felt that something was different than being at a Blockbuster. Something about the atmosphere felt off, a charm which only Blockbuster had. It felt like the others were just cheap imitations while Blockbuster was the king of movie rentals. The company started in 1985, and it was during the era where most people didn't even own VCRs. The company saw massive success in the coming years, and by the 1990s, Blockbuster was the standard for video rentals. It was a decent business idea as well, buying movies on VHSs and renting them out to people for a fraction of the cost till you recover what you originally paid for the movie. And once you were done with renting them out, you could just sell it. Since buying them in bulk also meant that you got access to some pretty impactful discounts, and in some cases, the company even worked out revenue-sharing deals with studios, there was a huge opportunity to make profit in this business model, and they even did the same thing with video games. And to add on to it, they even dealt in merchandise. While rentals were obviously their main source of income, it wasn't their only source. In 2003, rentals comprised up to 76% of their total revenue, while the rest come from merchandise and such. Merchandise refers to the sales of the movies and games they did, and also their general merchandise like the snacks they sold at the stores. All in all, it was an amazing business model for its time. So this sounds pretty good, right? Then when did things change? When did they stop being a beloved video rental store and be reduced to merely a late-night punchline? If we look at their revenue, we can see that around 2004 to 2005 was the peak of their earnings, while everything after went downhill. While most people would be thinking about Netflix right now, they wouldn't be completely wrong. But my conclusion is a bit different. Netflix may have played a role in the decline of Blockbuster, but this is not the complete story. To understand that, we need to understand what separates the two companies, and the Netflix I'm referring to here is the classic Netflix, not the streaming company, but the company which sent DVDs to your house because that's what Netflix was during that time. Right off the bat, we can notice two big differences between the companies. With Netflix, it was sort of a convenient business model where they sent movies to you. As for Blockbuster, you had to visit the store yourself in order to pick out what you wanted. While Netflix's model is more convenience-based, it also gives the customer less options. With Blockbuster, you could get movies anytime you wanted and not depend on the postal service to deliver the movies to you. At the end of it, this comes down to a matter of preference, so it might not be a huge deal. But the other difference is that Netflix followed a subscription-based model, whereas Blockbuster charged per movie. This is where Netflix was clearly superior, because for the amount you spent for 1 week of rentals at Blockbuster, you could get an entire month's worth of unlimited rentals from Netflix. One would think that the logical move here for Blockbuster would be to offer subscriptions so that it could compete. But this isn't as simple as it sounds. People might make fun of Blockbuster today and take them to be a bunch of idiots who couldn't change with the times. But everything isn't as it seems. The public seems to have this perception that Blockbuster thought in-store rentals were the only way to do business, but this isn't true. In 2000, Blockbuster declined a deal to purchase Netflix for $50 million because at the time, Blockbuster decided to compete with them as they thought they could win. They just thought that purchasing Netflix at the time wasn't the right move. It didn't mean that they were ignoring Netflix's business model. Looking back, it looks like the worst decision they had ever made, but there was no way for anyone to know at the time. Right around the same time, they made a 20-year deal which involved streaming videos on demand using fiber optic technology. Bear in mind that this was much more expensive than purchasing Netflix. The only downside was that the deal was made with Enron and the technology didn't work, bankrupting Enron in the process soon afterwards. If this deal had worked out, it would have put Blockbuster ahead of Netflix, since Netflix was still renting out physical video at that time. Further proof that Blockbuster wasn't ignorant about Netflix's business model. In the annual reports made by Blockbuster, nearly each year it included Netflix on it as a potential threat to the company and its business model. And there is actually proof that Blockbuster itself was looking to enter into that market with the help of DirecTV. Let's get back to why it wasn't as simple for Blockbuster to offer subscriptions as Netflix did. The rental revenue we discussed earlier included something known as late fees, something which isn't possible to collect if the person has an unlimited rental subscription. Since they were generating a sizable portion of their revenue from late fees, they were hesitant to change their business model entirely. Despite this, in 2004, they came out with a subscription service of their own called Blockbuster Movie Pass. And in 2005, they announced the abolition of late fees altogether. But the caveat here is that you are still renting out movies the old-fashioned way. You need to have some sort of late fees because you needed to have those movies back on time. The system they came up with was a bit suspicious. They gave the customer a grace period, and after a certain amount of time, they said that you owned the movie and charged the full price for it. In 2006, they launched Blockbuster Total Access, which was yet another online subscription-based service which allowed customers to check out more than one movie at a time. They also included multiple options, such as getting them delivered through postal service, or they could exchange it themselves through any Blockbuster outlet. It picked up pace at the start, but eventually the hype for it died down since it was more expensive than Netflix and it wasn't worth the extra money. They even went to the extreme and tried out another service called Blockbuster Express, which was a kiosk for DVD rentals. 2010 was the fated year, which marked the year when Blockbuster went bankrupt. A company called Dish Network bought Blockbuster soon afterwards, but they have yet to do something noticeable with the company. They have tried many things, like including the service with their satellite network, but it looks as if they have also given up on it. If you visit their website today, it's almost a sad sight. It just links you to the Dish Network's website while also showing the remaining locations, which came down to just 12 stores. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't much anyone can do now that could bring Blockbuster Video to its former glory. Blockbuster is a victim of the changing environment around them, but you can't blame someone for not understanding what's coming. They were in a situation where they needed to make quick decisions in order to survive, but they couldn't. Some businesses aren't designed to survive forever, and perhaps it was just Blockbuster's turn to fade away. Having said that, I prefer to remember Blockbuster, which gave us pleasant memories, rather than the joke it is treated as today. Well, that was all for today's video. Let us know in the comments if you have any fond memories from the Blockbuster stores. We would love to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and switching on the bell icon so you never miss any new upload. And while you're at it, why not share with your friends and family? With that said, check out some of the other videos which are on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next one.